Hello and welcome to our podcast named Detours. This podcast embraces the unexpected twists and turns that shapes the journeys of our lives that God sends us down. I'm your host and fellow traveler, Mike. I'm here with my beautiful wife, Deb, and we invite you to join us on this exploration of uncharted territories we encounter along the way. So without further ado, let's dive into this episode. Detours family, welcome to another episode. You know the drill. I am here with my beautiful wife, Deb.
Hi, guys.
Thank you for joining us on season 4. We are nearing the end of the season-ish. I don't really know how many episodes we're doing this year, but
I think it's your responsibility to know how many we've done so far, no?
No, I don't think it's my responsibility. But we are here. No, definitely not. But we are here with the same guests as our last episode. Miss Jenna is with us. Say hello, Jenna.
Hello.
And our good friend Linda is here as well.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you guys for coming back. As we ended the last episode, we brought up a topic just organically that Deb and I had been mentioning doing at least one episode, maybe multiple episodes on.
Yep.
The topic was friendship breakups.
Oh, yes. I think it's a lot to explore.
It is. It's an interesting topic, I would say, especially for Christians. Sometimes that can, we're supposed to love like family. And how do you do that when someone is walking away? How do you still represent Jesus well, whether they're Christian or not?
Oh, good point.
Could be an interesting subject for today's podcast. I mean, where do we even begin on something like this?
Well, I think that we can talk about society really valuing romantic relationships over the friendship. And I think friendship endures even past romantic relationships, right? People have spouses that pass or they're divorced. I mean, you just look at it and you don't see the same value in society placed on friendship, real, genuine friendship. And so I think that talking about what it's like to break up or what it's like to move on from a friend is just as valuable as it would be if we were talking about divorce, you know?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you and I have talked about are friendships that really are there for a season, and you don't realize it when you're in that season. And when the season is coming to an end, you may look around and go, wait a second.
How did we get here?
Yeah, what happened? We've drifted apart. What exactly was, the pieces that started falling apart?
That's true. And I think that you look at friendship and you go, wow, there's really like two types of friendships. There's the fountain and there's the drain. And the people that are the fountain are the ones that feed you and give you, they're life affirming, and they're there for the thick and thin, not just a season. And then there's the drains, the ones that you're constantly like, when you leave them, you're like, oh, I'm so exhausted. Like you have to brace yourself for impact, you know?
Yeah, it can be tough.
Yeah.
It can be tough. But, so, I mean, how do you guys navigate? I mean, each one of us has at least one, one good friendship that wish hadn't ended.
Yep.
That did. For me, it was my buddy in middle school, high school, and college. We were college roommates. Who drifted, and we can get into that certainly in this episode, but who are some of your guys' relationships that wound up going south?
Well, I was, as I'm thinking about, have I really had any friendship breakups? And for me, I haven't. I'm one of those where...
Really?
Yeah, I can't think of I know one time a friend wanted to break up with me, but I don't break up with my friends, and I don't know, again, I'm pretty tenacious, or I try to work it out, but I can't recall ever.
So here's hopefully an interesting question for you, Jenna. Last episode, you mentioned that you were a people pleaser.
Yes.
Do you think those two coincide?
I think I'm incredibly loyal to a default. Yes, I definitely think it's less about people pleasing, more about, I think of how Jesus treated Judas. And I think maybe that's how I approach some relationships. and I know that some probably are toxic and maybe weren't good for me. I don't ever recall having an official breakup with a friend.
I don't know that I don't think anything is official. Like when you think about your friend in college, Mike, it wasn't like you guys said, yeah, we're done with each other. I think it happens organically.
Like a slow fade.
Sometimes a slow fade. I know
Yeah.
Linda mentioned that while we were briefing about this. And sometimes it's very abrupt.
Yeah. And I've been close to breakups. I will say that I've had confrontations with friends. I have had moments where I didn't know if this was healthy for me, even to maintain a relationship with this person. But I dig my claws in there pretty hardcore, and it might be again
To your detriment?
To my detriment, absolutely. I think there's definitely times I've looked back at certain relationships, and I think that was very unhealthy for me, and it kind of we naturally parted ways, I guess, like you said.
Yeah.
But there was never a blowout. There was never a breakup. There was never like, let's just agree that this relationship isn't working and we're going to go separate ways.
Right.
I've never had that experience with friendships.
Well, that's good.
And I have friends from I still have friends from when I was like 13 years old, 14 years old.
Love that.
I do.
Well, we're going to talk about toxic friendships, maybe the ones you should have walked away from.
Yes.
We'll hit that, right? And I think we'll hit like, what is it like to heal from a breakup?
Yeah, I think in my world, to that point is my relationships maybe haven't broken up, but they definitely, the dynamics of the relationship has changed.
Okay.
The access to my life has changed when I became obviously a Christian. That really changed my friendships from my friends that aren't Christian.
Sure,
and
as it should.
Yeah, it changed dramatically, but I still am in communication with most of them. So that's been my experience.
That's great, though.
Maybe
Maybe
by the end
We'll
of this, we'll
explore
see.
that. We'll explore that.
Maybe when we're done with this conversation, I'm going to have to go home and break up with some people. I don't know.
never know.
We will. We'll start talking about those toxic traits, and you're going to go, wait a second.
Wait, I think I know some of
3 or
that.
4 conversations, difficult conversations I need to have.
Yeah.
What about you, Linda?
Yeah. So in preparation for this, I really thought through, what friendship breakups I may have had in the past. And I can't think of a definitive, kind of like, you were both talking about, like where it was, yes, this is the day that we're going to call it quits. But I think part of that is that I have, for the most part, most of my life, in most of my relationships, I've been very much an avoidant person. I avoid confrontation, but I also avoid closeness to some degree with people, especially if they're difficult. And so my natural tendency is to just kind of fade out,
What did you call it tonight at dinner? You called it the slow fade.
I said I just quiet quit the friendship.
That's it.
Linda just goes MIA.
That's right. And sometimes, and it's very important for those listening that may be friends with me. Sometimes that is just because I'm overwhelmed with other things that have nothing to do with
Us
friendship.
introverts.
But
I was just
That
going to say,
happens
us
sometimes.
extra, and a thing true for you, Linda, and for you, Michael, us extroverts like me and Deb, we find introverts and we just adopt you. Like we don't let you.
yeah, and we
walk
bank
out.
on that because
We
we
bank
would
on
never
that.
have friends. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, we just need to be adopted.
Yeah,
Let's
I picked
just
you.
be-
Yeah, I picked you, Linda.
Yeah, I picked you too. Look at how lucky you are.
She is, hopefully putting her hand on her chest for the listeners right now. They can't see her. She is very
Very
loved.
avoidant right now. No.
Yes.
No.
But yeah, I think for the biggest relationship that I was in that came to an end, it wasn't an abrupt end. It was just a slow erosion of the friendship over time. He went through, his parents went through a horrible, nasty divorce going into senior year of high school. And both he and I didn't know how to cope with that. We were not equipped for that. And he didn't know how to express himself. He was caught in the middle of all of this for years. And just slowly over time, it just completely changed his personality to the point where he was virtually unrecognizable.
That's sad.
It was so sad. He was such a sweet guy. We loved playing basketball together. We had basketball hoops in both of our driveways. And when we were at his house, man, we went and played basketball at his house. And we were at my house, we went and played basketball. Loved video games. He was the guy that got me into World Wrestling Federation.
Oh,
he had cable
wow.
at his house and I didn't. So I would go over to his house on Monday nights and watch World Wrestling Federation. We were
that.
buddies. And then, after high school, we went away to college and we were roommates. And that's when you really started to see the change.
How did you break that off?
I just got to the point where I was exhausted. I was absolutely exhausted being the one carrying the weight, always extending the invitation to do something, always picking up the phone to call the other person.
Yep.
And phone calls would many times go you wouldn't return the phone call. And
Yeah.
it just got to that point where I was just like, I'm in this for the memory and the love of what we used to have. And there really isn't anything being offered to me anymore. So if he wants friendship, I'm here. To this day, I would answer the phone if he called. But I know pretty comfortably the phone probably will never ring. I don't sit around waiting for it.
Right.
But,
did you ever have, and we've been talking about official breakups, but did you ever really say like, hey dude, I just don't think like we can have this friendship?
Not
Guys talk
a
like that?
conversation, but mentally.
So as we're talking, so I am actually recalling where I did actually have a breakup, but there's been a reconciliation.
Okay.
But this was with somebody who was my mentor. This was somebody who she would say jump, I'd say how high. And my people pleasing with her was definitely at the height of all heights. I wanted to please her, but she was very A-type. I am not. And so a lot of the times even to, I'm trying to say it without saying a name, people would even say I'm a mini version of her, and they saw a lot of the same things, characteristics and strengths. And this was a strong Christian woman. And this woman in particular had spent some time with the Lord and said that she had gotten a word from God saying, that I wasn't worthy of the ministry, that it was brutal. Imagine the person that you love and respect the most in the world, and the person that you want to please the most in the world is telling you, you've just disqualified yourself from working in full-time ministry. But God, the day before, I had been spending time in the Word, and it was when Paul, I think, was talking to Timothy, and he had said to Timothy, I have found you worthy of the ministry. And when God gave me that word, I was like, yeah, I know. I was like, yeah, that's what I do. This is what I do full time. Anyways, there was a fallout. When she said that to me, I was devastated. I was like, I think you might be hearing from God, but you got the wrong person. I was like, I'm not saying that God didn't tell you, but you got a team of us. And I just think I'm not the person that you are getting that message for. But she had the power to hire or fire me. And I lost my position.
Wow.
And that would have really, if God hadn't spoken to me in that moment, I don't know where my faith, it was devastating. I mean, it was absolutely devastating. And we didn't talk for a very long time. I would say maybe 4 or 5 years.
That's a long time.
It was a long time. And then, but I have a heart always to reconcile. And they did come to me, and this person is very intimidating and very brilliant and smart. And she is savvy businesswoman. And so I always felt a little bit beneath her in that way, but we got together. And I was able to not people please and tell her how much she devastated me and how that really was scary. And it could have completely derailed me from my walk with God. And she was very apologetic. And I had to be brave enough, though, to let her know how badly she hurt me and how devastating it was for me. So again, my apology language, I just need an I'm sorry. And I'm usually good to go. With friendships, it might be a little bit different romantically.
Sure.
But with friendships, I'm sorry, it goes a long way with me. And we talk and spend time together, and she comes and visits me and spends the night. And I mean, it's completely restored.
But
I had to forgive her.
restoration takes difficult conversation.
It does.
And not everyone wants to have that difficult conversation.
Yeah.
And I can get with the avoidant sometimes, like, is this worth having the difficult conversation? And sometimes it absolutely is, and sometimes it isn't, and that's fine too. You have to know what that is, but you are willing to have that, like, I'm setting a boundary, you hurt my feelings, this is why, and you need to know that. If we ever want to get back to friendship, you need to know what you've done, because I wouldn't be true to myself had I not told you,
right?
Type of thing.
And I would say recently I went through a season where I actually hurt a lot of people unintentionally because I went MIA because my world demanded a lot from me. And everybody, I think for the most part, new friendships and old friendships were so used to me being incredibly available. And I didn't handle the transition very well of maintaining relationships. And I had to apologize, and I had to make amends with, I would say, 3 to 4 people in my life that were very hurt by feeling like I wasn't available.
Yeah, and that, I think we also have to differentiate between, when someone's going through something really difficult. And I know that, I have gone through several major job transitions, mainly because, since I left being a teacher, I kind of like my career has accelerated to some degree, and that takes a lot of just mental energy, and so going from, a junior level position to, now a senior level position in the matter of just 5-6 years, that was like a really big transition. And so I've had friends that just simply, we used to maybe talk more. I had more bandwidth to talk more on the phone, whereas now I can't, because I am on calls all day, or there's a shifting dynamic, and hopefully your friends have enough grace to know where you are, especially in your situation when you're going through a lot. But my question, and I'm going to throw this one out to Deb, is, when it's not that situation and someone is either, maybe not meeting your needs as a friend, or they're just not communicating and backing away. Like I said, that, quiet quitting the friendship. So when do you know when's the time to, have a conversation and break up a friendship if it needs to be broken up?
I think there's a couple of real key things for, hey, is this friendship worth the fight? I would say if you have friends that you've learned over time that they're not trustworthy, that they don't say what they're going to do, they don't show up when they say they're going to show up, or you've had some kind of incident where you feel like your actual confidence, the things that you've shared, the things that are deep to your soul are being exposed by this person, I would say that's kind of like a red flag, if we want to call it. A friend that just won't apologize. Maybe like with Jenna, you're like, a sorry is enough for me. Well, a sorry is not enough for me. Like, that's not my apology language. I need to see an actual change. And I struggle because I don't trust very easily. And so if you break my trust, it's going to take a long time for you to earn it back. And I'm very cautious. Like, okay, I can forgive you, but trust is not always a given. Yeah. You're going to have to earn that back. I think you end a friendship when you think about having these conversations that are valuable, but you almost dread them, like that pit in your stomach. And I'm not saying that because there are people who just avoid conversation, and that's kind of the pit's always there. But I'm talking about really I don't think the conversation is going to yield fruit. I dread doing this because I'm afraid that the outcome is not going to produce anything of value. That dread.
They're not safe.
Yeah.
It's not a safe person. and that,
Yeah.
how do you decipher that? Like, how do you know? How do you know? Is it after one conversation, two? Like, what's your threshold? Like, okay, we've had this.
That's a good conversation to have.
We've had this conversation now 5 times. Like, that's it.
Right. And I think everyone has a different threshold. I know that Jesus would call us to unconditional forgiveness.
Right.
But unconditional forgiveness does not equate to unconditional trust.
Right.
So I guess every person is different. And however long you've spent in the relationship, you can decipher for yourself, okay, this person's going to get a few more chances than someone else because I have history, I have time, I've invested into this person, this person's invested into me. That person may get more grace than the person that's somewhat new in a friendship.
Yeah.
I think it depends.
It also, it's also important to know whether that person is going to take accountability. So I think a lot of the times we assume, we're having a conversation, maybe behavior modification may be happening, but is this person truly accountable to the point where they feel a sense of, hey, this is something I do truly want to change within myself? Or is this just, let's just put a patch on that and you stop talking about it because it's making me uncomfortable.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's hard.
yeah.
Because someone can say I'm sorry and then there's no actual real fruit to I'm sorry. Anyone can say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It takes a whole nother thing to go, hey, I realize I do this not just with you, but with other people. And God has shown me this.
Yeah.
And I really do want to be different. I just don't know how. Will you bear with me until I get there?
Yeah.
That's very different than, yeah, I know this bothers you, but, hey, I'm real sorry. That's like different, You look like you want to say something. Say something.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the person. Here's what I will say. I think for some people, saying I'm sorry is actually really hard for them and isn't necessarily, I don't know their heart, but again, to your point earlier, that's not your apology language. And I think anybody that you're going to have a relationship with, that you matter to me, Deb. So me understanding that if I let you down in some way, I love you. I don't have a problem with meeting your apology language. And then, you can trust me with that, So I think, though, there are people that deal with immense amounts of pride or whatever their bandwidth is, whatever they were brought up in. They don't have the same, even words. Nobody ever taught them the words. Nobody ever taught them, hey, apologize and say, how can I make this up to you? Or,
Right.
they don't have the emotional intelligence. And that might be important for you to be in a relationship with somebody too. And that's valid, and you can't maybe do friendship with somebody that doesn't have the ability to express when they've wronged you.
Yes.
In a way that makes you feel safe.
Yes.
Because you've had a lot of trauma.
I have.
So God knows who your friends need to be.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I believe that too. And who you don't need.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think one of the most important, critical things to make it to the inner circle of friends is a trait that sadly has gotten lost, and it's do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
If you tell me that you're going to help me move and it is absolutely pouring down rain, I don't care. You better be there.
Right.
Because if the shoe was on the other foot, I would absolutely be there.
Right.
And in today's day and age, even the Bible says, let your yeses be yes and let your no's be no.
Yep.
And it is so easy for people to say yes and the time comes and they're not there. But in the last episode, talking about all these people, my buddy in Colorado, my dad, my mentor, the couple of friends that I have in Fort Lauderdale, every single one of them, their yeses mean yes and their no's mean no. And I think even as Christians, that was one of the biggest things that I struggled with as I matured as a Christian, is just how many Christian men, their yeses were not yes and their no's were not no. And I was like, wait a minute, we're supposed to be salt and light. And you said yes and you were nowhere to be found. Like, how are we being salt and light in this world? And that to this day is critically important to me. If you tell me you're going to do something and you don't do it, I don't know what to do with that. So you will never make it into that inner circle of friends, because so many people talk about how important family is. So many people talk about this, that, and the other. I don't want to talk about it. It just is. So when you say, I need help moving, I'll just say, okay, we don't need to talk about it unless, hey, Mike, can you bring over boxes? Okay, sure. We don't talk about it. If I said yes, I'm going to be there. And we're going to do that. We're going to do it together. Even if it's pouring down rain and we're getting drenched and it's a miserable experience, we are going to move together. And it's something that still to this day baffles me, that people's word doesn't mean what it used to. Mm-hmm. So many business deals. My dad would talk about when he went to college. My dad is a salesman, and he went to go speak at the school. He went to a real tiny college in Missouri, and they invited him to come back. He's a salesman for Dun & Bradstreet, and they invited him to come back and actually speak at a graduation ceremony. And afterwards, after he spoke, the kids could raise their hands. They had a Q&A session. And they said, what classes do you recommend I take? I'd love to do what you do. And he said, well, there's 2 classes you have to take, business statistics and golf. And that's it. You don't need anything else, truly, to do what I do, because you need to know how to read graphs and stats and things like that. And then all your business deals are done over a game of golf. If I knew how to play golf, I would be a better salesman. He doesn't know how to play golf. He said that I would recommend that. And he grew up in a time where when people said they were going to do something, you could shake hands on a golf course, right, and it didn't take lawyers done. No, it was just, okay,
right,
we're going to do business together. And society's just moved so far away from that's got to be part of the reason why it is so hard to find friends nowadays.
For real.
Compared to 30 years ago when I was a little kid, people meant what they said.
Yeah. I got to speak to that, because when we were newly dating, again, after the long separation, it was a hurricane weekend and we were home, and I told my coworker, Mike said he's coming. And he was like, your guy is going to come driving through a hurricane for you. And I was so confident that you told me you were coming. I didn't even I was like, yeah, he said he's coming. He's coming. And lo and behold, you came and saw me.
Yeah, I had one caveat to that was when hurricanes come, all the gas stations run out of gas.
Right.
And I told Deb, I said, I got a quarter of a tank and I can't make it to you on quarter of a tank. I said, if I can find a gas station where I can get gas, I'm coming. Yeah. And God opened up a racetrack.
Yep, and he was there.
I filled up and I hit the road. But
it's funny, when I got back to work, I was like, by the way, he showed up. And the face was just like, wow, okay. Because I believed that you said what you meant and you meant what you said.
Yeah, as you're talking, I think I'm having a moment and realizing that, I have poor boundaries. So I am an easy friend to have and keep, I think, because I never thought of it in that way. I think even too, because I've had people break my trust, and I have confided in them and I have told them things. I'm so transparent. I'm such an open book that it doesn't bother me if word gets out. I always have this thought where I'm like, if I say it, or even if I journal it in my journal, I'm like, I might die and someone's going to read this, So if I'm putting it out there, there's always a possibility that it might fall in somebody else's ears. So again, I'm not a very private person.
Neither am I.
Yeah. So
pretty open.
Yeah. I'm very open that way. But to your point, or what you're saying, I think I'm having this moment right now where I'm like, because I'm trying to learn boundaries in a romantic way, but I never thought of it in a friendship way. And even right now in my time alone with the Lord, He has told me to stop venting and stop talking, because there is somebody in my world that I am speaking to that isn't really holding my confidence. And that's just something I know because I'm spending time with God. But now I'm like, who is it? Who am I not allowed to be talking to? It's just easier. I just stop talking.
Then you come on a podcast.
And then I come on
and talk for an hour.
That's so funny.
But I'm not sharing about the personal stuff that I'm going through right now.
All right.
Yeah, this is general a very blanket general topic of conversation.
Yeah, I've been thinking through though recently too, because I to your point, I have always, kind of maintained friendships, whether that was, more distant, closer, and sometimes it's a hybrid of both. I have a girlfriend in Missouri that Indiana. Look at me. I don't even know where she lives. She lives, in a very small town, and we stay in contact via like this voice, this video messaging
Marco
app.
Polo?
Yeah. And so we just, but we pick it up where we left off, and that's totally okay because I know she's trustworthy. I know that I can lean on her, but the reason for that is that she has a track record of being that friend. And so I know I can trust that even if there's miles between us, even if there's months that we haven't spoken. But there are things in my life that I'm starting to pull back and starting to really question, okay, is this just a social moray, or is this a sign of disrespect? I'll give you a good example. If you have a friend that continually shows up late and their excuse is, I'm just the late person.
No, unacceptable.
Okay, thanks, Deb.
No, unacceptable. Why is your time more important than my time?
Let's get Deb going.
No,
Let's do it.
That irks me. To me, that's disrespectful. Like, I've set aside time for you. I put value on you. If I tell you, again, it goes back to Mike saying, say what you mean and mean what you say. I'm going to be there at 5 o'clock. You best believe I'm going to be there at 5 o'clock, probably beforehand. If someone's consistently doing that, it's disrespectful, in my humble opinion. Now, some people find that, okay, that's fine. That's just who you are. I don't know.
It's culturally accepted in,
Yes.
I would say, the Hispanic community.
Yeah,
Just
well-
like in our, I think being Italian, we're very accepting of the big blowouts and then the makeups like within like 5 minutes of each other.
True. That gets
And
old,
some people
though.
would say we're abusive and toxic.
I don't know.
But right.
We say what we mean, and,
we do.
but there's times where you can't do that with everybody. You have to know who you could do that with,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
But the late thing irks me.
Yeah. And especially too, because when I look at some of my friends, it's like, are you doing this with your boss? Like, would you do this at work? Would that be acceptable? But I've just over the years now I'm just starting to observe. I haven't confronted anyone and haven't said anything. And sometimes I'm the one that's late, but I'm always the one that's like very nervously saying, hey, I'm late because of, and can you, I try to make a guesstimate of when I'm going to be there, but it's a really tough thing to navigate these small things that can become big things because it's showing a sign of, hey, I don't really respect you. I don't really respect your time. And, to Mike's point, there was a time when I would send out, or, anyone in our friend group would send out these messages of like, hey, we're getting together on Friday. And it would be maybe Monday, maybe Tuesday morning. And everybody would be like, I'll think about it. I'm not sure. I'll get back to you. And then it would come Friday afternoon at 4 p.m. and we have a reservation at 6 for them to finally commit or not commit because they weren't sure if something else would kind of.
Yeah, I'm waiting for something better to happen.
Exactly.
I have no respect for that.
Yeah.
No respect for that whatsoever. Listen, if I'm a second choice to you, I'm not the right friend for you. That's it. See ya. I'm fine. I don't know. And maybe that sounds a little harsh, but there comes a point where you're like, I'm worthy of having a friend who thinks I'm worthy enough to show up when they say they were. I'm not talking about not giving people grace because people are late. Okay, give me a call. Let me know. That's fine. But
it's equally yoked is what you're looking for.
Yes.
Anyone can run into traffic when it's
That's right, Mike. Listen.
Anyone can hit rain on the drive over and you're 10 minutes late. It's the chronic.
Yeah.
This is clearly unequally yoked. So I'm going to,
for sure,
move on.
And it's really like how you do small things or how you do anything is how you do everything. Yes. And people don't realize that. Like small things matter. Small things matter in a marriage. Small things matter in a friendship. Small things matter in coworkers.
Small things matter to God.
Faithful in the little, right? He says, "Let's be.
Amen.
You're faithful with the little, and then I can give you more."
Yeah,
right.
Right. That's we have a very dear friend that runs an organization called EMA. And just her story, how she started so small. Her ministry started as a mission trip to Africa, I think it was, wasn't it?
I think so.
And it literally, she came back with a passion, and God gave her just a little bit, and she was faithful, and he gave her a little bit more, and she was faithful. And now she's like got affiliate networks in 7 different states or something like that. And it's just blown up. But yeah,
she helps single moms.
Yeah.
I love that.
So yeah, I think the little things, that's what you always see people in the military that talk about: get up every single day and start by making your bed.
Yeah.
And you start with just those little things and that little discipline.
Consistency matters.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with your relationship with God. Consistency matters. Spending time with the Lord matters to him. The little things that you do matter to him, because you're building that muscle of intimacy by doing those small things.
Yeah. And I think what you were saying before, Linda, too, is really important. Is you might be late, but you're communicating. And communication is so huge in relationships. If you don't communicate why you're running late, it could leave someone like you, Deb, feeling not cared for, and that your time is not valued by her. So, and you might be having an avoidant moment and feel afraid to tell Deb why you're running late. I mean, again, the way we communicate to one another too is going to make or break a relationship, both friendship and you guys as a married couple, I'm sure could have a whole podcast about communication.
Yeah, we should do that at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things, Deb, that you've kind of brought up too, when we were prepping for this, is just the friendships that there are lanes that friends are in, and they're incapable of changing lanes.
Yeah, that's kind of sad.
That's very vague. So why don't you unpack that?
Yeah, I think that I didn't realize until much later in life. I didn't really have friends in my childhood, so I am learning friendship later in life more than the average person. But I always assumed that, a friend could just be with you in all occasions. And I learned that that's not true. There's friends that you do serious conversation with, and you do prayer with, and you do the hard things with. And then there are friends that you do the fun stuff with. And sometimes the people that do the hard stuff can't do the fun stuff. And that was a realization that was really hard for me. I'm like, what do you mean we can't go shopping and have fun? I've cried with you. So having that expectation of you should be able to meet all of these needs was unrealistic expectation for me to have for this person. She was not capable. She wound up ghosting me after I confronted, some of my disappointment and hurt, and we talked through it, and I thought we were good. But just really, if I wanted a friendship with her, I would have to consistently pursue, and I'm not in the business of doing that. I want not a one-sided friendship. But yeah, I really thought that in life, you really have, God gives you these people that are going to satisfy certain needs that you have. And he's gracious to give you a variety of friends that meet those needs. Because really, if one person met all those needs, that could possibly turn into an idol, I would think. Yeah, right.
Well, look at what Jesus did. He had his 12 disciples, and then, if we read, we had kind of his top 3, and then he had the 12. And they all were very different, got different names, played different roles. And so if the God of the universe gave us this example of relationships and friendships,
great point.
That's how we can approach our relationships with our friends and the people that we keep in our close circle, kind of bringing it all the way back to when I first started talking, even the Judas in our life. Sometimes there are people that God calls us to not break up with because they are playing a purpose in our life for some reason. And I think society, we've gotten really far from loving our enemy and creating a lot of boundaries and breaking up with people. We just got to know who God is calling us to and who he is not calling us to. And again, sometimes he just helps us break up with people, like that friend. You did the right thing. You confronted her and you shared your heart. You were vulnerable and she couldn't handle it.
Right.
She gone.
Yep. And it was a great season, and I loved her.
Right.
And if she called me up to say, hey, listen, I kind of ghosted you, and I'm sorry about that, I could maintain a friendship with her. But, you until then.
Your heart for reconciliation.
Yes.
Always, right? Like we position our heart to give our enemy a drink if they need it and food if they need it. Not maybe complete access, into our world. I have to learn that more, with my first ex-husband, like I have to have a certain amount of boundaries that I can't give access anymore. It's not safe. It's not healthy. But each relationship, I think, is very different.
Yeah, I have a girlfriend of mine, too, that once, because there were a few times where I was kind of ready to end or wrap up a relationship or a friendship. And she really just said, Linda, sometimes people aren't really necessarily going to be ousted from the circle altogether. They just go to a different ring. It's kind of if you look at your...
I can relate to that.
Yeah, you have an inner circle and maybe more of an outer inner circle and then an outer circle and then an outer circle. So we could say that these are acquaintances versus close friends. And sometimes people just get pushed out to, now we're just acquaintances. We can pass each other in the hallway. I think of... like when you grew up from middle school to high school, sometimes, you didn't maintain the same level of friendships with the people you had in one stage of your life versus the other. The same may be true. And she just invited me into that conversation. Her name's my friend Rachel. And she's one of my friends that has just remained in that inner circle because I know I can trust her and I can come to her and she'll always be, we don't agree on everything. And it's weirdly like she's never left that inner circle. So I knew I could really trust that counsel, but she was right because I was, kind of ready to just throw everybody off the board, and start fresh. And she was like, no, Linda, let's reel it in a little bit.
Wise counsel.
Yeah.
I think we should talk about what happens when a breakup is necessary and you have the breakup. Like there's a grieving process that really has to happen.
Yeah.
Because it's the end of something.
Yeah.
And doing that, maybe we even talk about what does it look like to break up with a friend in a healthy way, in a godly way. And maybe that starts with acknowledging the hurt. Because a lot of times people don't want to express the hurt because either they're embarrassed or they think the other person's not going to understand or...
You're a people pleaser?
Yeah.
So
you don't want to express the hurt?
I don't... Yeah, you don't...
We don't want to have the confrontation.
You don't want to have the confrontation. You don't.
I don't want to make you uncomfortable.
I don't want to make you uncomfortable.
Oh,
yeah.
It's not about me because I'm thinking about you because I'm a people
but
pleaser.
it is about you because you don't want to be uncomfortable.
No.
Right?
Well,
in one respect, because if I'm uncomfortable, then you're uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, it's a level of people pleasing, codependency.
Yes, yes.
I think it's more codependency, maybe than people pleasing.
Yes.
And I think what you were saying about how... So
Mike.
when you were saying about not being unequally yoked, and then the verse that came to me too was when he says in 1 Corinthians 15:30, it warns the dangers of bad company. And so that too. Now, how do you tell somebody we're unequally yoked? You're bad company. I mean, like nobody's gonna receive that. And I had a situation one time in leadership, not friendship, leadership, where I just felt like I knew I didn't want to be under their leadership. I knew it, but I had no reason to tell them. So I did kind of I kind of backed out. Like I was like, I'm just not going to serve. I kind of hid under my pregnancy. I did. And then it ended up turning into, there was this big meeting. It was a church staff meeting at the time of a church plant. And they confronted me and said to me, well, you didn't come to us and you didn't Matthew 18 it and say, I was like, well, what was I going to say to you? I'm discerning something. I just don't want to be under your leadership.
Let's talk about Matthew 18 real quick in case
Yes.
anyone, because sometimes people don't memorize areas of scripture. So if you could, real
Matthew
quick.
18 is when we're encourages us in the scripture to go to if you have an offense with a person, to go to directly to that person first before getting anybody else involved. So if I had a problem with you, Linda, I would come to you first and talk to you about it. So that's the Matthew 18 reference.
Right. And if that doesn't work, you go to leadership.
Yes.
And then if that doesn't work, you set the boundary.
Yeah. And you sever the relationship. So that might be kind of where we circle around to how to break up with somebody is first confronting them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you have to use discernment. There were even people in my life that I knew that conversation would not yield fruit. So why even have that uncomfortable conversation? Like literally some people are just not capable. Like what Deb was saying a few minutes ago, when you go through a painful season, you make friends and they're in that pain season, but they can't cross over into
the fun season
that comes afterwards, or they can't have the long, deep conversation. It's just going to be about sports or whatever it is for guys. There's absolutely that. There's the guys that I just, we watch football and that's the end of it. That's what it'll always be, but I don't expect more out of it. So I think part of that is the discernment of, can this person receive it? Discernment of, how do I do it? Tone.
Timing.
So, timing is critical. Where's the place? How do I do this? And how do I say it in a way that it will be received? Because I think some of the things as Christians that we've lost skill in, especially as of late, is how we disagree.
Oh, totally.
You can lose friends and you're 50% at fault because you don't understand how to disagree with someone as a Christian.
Right,
Guilty.
Respectfully.
Guilty. Yeah, guilty.
You can absolutely shove someone in a corner because they just have some belief, whether, I'll just use end times because everyone has a different opinion on end times and people get very passionate about end times.
That's true.
But if I'm pre-trib and you're post-trib, or I'm, you see so many ridiculous things out there where people just shove you in a corner because they don't know how to disagree.
That's a great point.
It's crazy.
And I think too, you have to be prayed up and ready, because if you're the type of person, maybe like me, I'm more of a stuffer. I don't really express my emotions in the moment because I just have an automatic freeze response. There isn't a spiritual issue here. I have to tell people that sometimes, where this is my body shutting down physically. And so I have to be able to step back, pray, and make sure I'm ready to have that conversation. Otherwise, I will overcorrect. And
what does overcorrect look like for you?
Overcorrect looks like, instead of putting you in an outer circle, you're off the board completely.
Okay.
Like, we gone.
You've cast them into the abyss.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
I am going to go full Latina on you, and you'll see the wrath of Linda once again. I'm small, but I can
be mighty.
I can be mighty if I want to be. And so that is an overcorrection, where now I'm not being loving. Now I'm not being kind, but I'm coming from a place of, I'm in pain and I'm about to erupt, and here it goes.
And I think that's what happens with stuffing, is that there's all this brooding that happens, or all this ruminating over the wrongs and what could I say and how can this work? And sometimes it's a snowball. It starts off small, and then before you know it, you're in full blown, like, you're imagining how the fight's going to go. And you've already predetermined, well, it's not going to go good, because, we catastrophize things at times. And then you've already gone into the confrontation with some preconceived notions of negativity. I'm speaking to myself, not necessarily to you, because I've done this, where I have predetermined, it's just going to be bad, and this is what it's going to be like. That stuffing really can produce anxiety, and that even if you spoke just a little bit of like, hey, I'm not ready to talk about this now, but I would like in a couple of days to readdress what has happened. And I see that with Michael and myself. Michael likes to process, and I'm ready right now to talk. But if I pushed him before he was ready, it would not be fruitful for him or for me. And I know I need to give him that time to just process and think. And if it's gone too long, I might be like, oh, he's going to snowball. There's probably a sweet spot, and every person has it. And we've kind of learned what that is. If like 3 days go by, I'm like, uh-oh, we better talk about this before it goes bad, But it's important to have that, like, hey, I do want to address something, but I'm not ready yet. Will you bear with me a few days? I'd like to talk to you about why I'm hurt, and I just need to process, or why I'm angry, or why whatever emotion you put on it. And that other person has to be mature enough not to like freak out, because it's easy to freak out and go, oh my gosh, what are they mad about? So it's this mutual respect that has to happen in relationships, and it's not easy.
No,
it's not.
And you really need to choose your words wisely, because in the example that I gave earlier about the person being late, and you said, that's absolutely unacceptable. Like I coming from, if I'm wearing my big gold hoops, I might be like, well, you're always late,
my big gold hoops.
But if I am coming from a place where I have been able to process and, I'm having compassion, I may say something instead. Hey, just so that you're aware, I understand that being late may just be in your blood. You may be Latin or Italian or whatever.
Italians aren't late.
Yeah. But it feels like disrespect to me when you're late. So it would really be helpful if either you're on time or let me know, because I'd just kind of be left here waiting for you.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
So that's different than you're always late.
Yeah. Words like always, never, those are trigger words to put people on the defensive. If I say you're always late, of course I'm going to be defensive. No, I'm not. Yeah. When that's like fighting fair. You have to learn how to fight fair, and fighting fair, you do not use words like always and never. And, those words those words put an umbrella of shame over somebody, and it automatically puts the other person on defensive. I did that with an argument I had with a sibling, and I used the word always, and I caught myself immediately because she got defensive. And I said, well, let me rephrase. Not always. Right now, this is happening, and it's hurting. Mm-hmm. And that kind of a little bit took the tone down, maybe.
Yeah, I think as I'm experiencing a romantic breakup, we'll say, I'm doing a lot of work on myself and looking at myself and how to approach these situations. And the biggest thing that I'm learning right now is to approach every conversation, not accusing, but with curiosity. Mm-hmm. Why were you late, Linda? Why did you respond that way to me, Deb? And I'm giving an opportunity for you to say, actually, I had a really bad day at work, right? You know what I mean? Like when we are approaching each other with curiosity and not accusation, I think can lend to the conversation to either go really well. And if it still goes south, even though your approach, you can come in with curiosity, and then they just confirm the thing that, that this isn't going to be a healthy relationship for me to maintain anymore. Mm-hmm. But at least you're giving a person an opportunity to essentially expose their heart.
Yeah.
When we approach it that way.
Yeah. And this is just my humble opinion. Yeah. Even sometimes the word why can put someone on the defensive. Like I've really tried to think about, how do I ask a question without using the word why?
Yeah, like, can you help me understand?
That's a lot better than why
did
are
you do that?
Yeah, why are you always late?
Well, it's so much as tone.
Yeah, true.
Right? It's not like, right, Deb?
True.
There are two different ways that you can receive the word relax.
Oh my goodness.
Right? If I look at you and I go, Deb, relax.
You're getting knocked out.
I'm getting a throat punch about half a second later. But if I gently put my hand on your shoulder and I just go, hey, babe, take a deep breath. Let's just relax. It's
Totally different.
But yeah, there are those words like why and relax and calm down.
Oof.
And there's that list of words that you can say, but you got to be super sensitive to that tone.
Yes.
There's a lot of smirking going on in the
we're
studio
all
here
laughing.
today.
Yeah, 'cause we know.
Playing that wheel in your head of all those conversations. But yeah, tone is so critically important. And
Body language. 80% of what I'm saying, you are reading it from.
I'm
sure,
married
yes.
to a 100% Italian woman that could never ever play poker.
Never.
Ever.
I can play poker if I really try.
We can be extremely manipulative, don't we? Have many years of practice. I think I'm not saying in
body language?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Do tell.
Yeah, no, I think we can definitely, if I came to the table and I wanted something, I can change my body language, my posture, the way that I say it, the expression on my face.
That is manipulative.
It's very manipulative.
Well, I don't think that's a standard.
Self-control like that.
Believe me, married to you, I have a lot of self-control.
That's what I'm saying.
Trust me.
I mean, not with the heart to manipulate.
I love you.
But yes, we definitely have a moment where I'm being you know what I'm
Cognizant.
saying? Thank you. Of the way that I'm my face, my body language, you know, how I'm approaching, you know, with hands on the hip. If you guys could see me right now,
Foot tapping.
Yeah. There's a lot that I could do.
Yeah.
But is that manipulative, or is that
That's not.
You're learning how to move into a more positive body language?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Lots to talk about. Good conversation on friendship breakups. I think we definitely have more that we can talk through.
I'm sure we get on a roll and it's like, ooh, okay.
Get you guys going on this.
Yeah.
But
I think the next one should be on conflict resolution.
conflict resolution. All right. Well, that's something that we will talk about.
You guys are going to fight a lot that week.
Don't say that. I rebuke that in Jesus'
I
name.
take it back.
Yes. Hopefully that is not the case. Colorful fellowship, as they say. But yeah, we got, a lot of good conversation in on this topic. Definitely something that needs to be talked about, processed through. Lots of good thoughts, different perspectives in the room, male, female, introvert, extrovert, all
That's
sorts
true.
of different perspectives around
Variety.
this table. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to see the differences and what's important and what's not to each person. But Linda, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Miss Jenna, same to you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Deb, my
I love you,
beautiful co-host here. I love you too. Thank you for joining us. And we will continue next episode. Who knows? Maybe it's conflict resolution. Maybe it's not.
see.
We'll see what happens.
If none of us break up by then.
Yes. Jenna's going to go home and start meditating on this first friendship breakup. But thank you guys so much. We will talk to you again in a couple weeks.
Bye, guys.
Bye.